Him. We're continuing to pray for Sister Lynn, of course, as she's recovering. And then please be and just remember Brother Noel Swinner and their family. And his dad was a great man of God and been pastoring and serving the Lord for just over 50 years. And passed away. So be in prayer for the family. Anybody else? We're praying for your SSI. So make sure remember that as well. For Charles, you have a prayer request? Can't think of any. Okay. All right. I don't know anybody. Kristen, is anybody else anything that's sick? I can't. There's a lot of people I pray for, probably a dozen a day. Just different preachers and families and things like that, but I can't think of anybody that we have that's sick or anything like that. Yes.
Dustin Brown, they're on their
Oh yeah, Dustin Brown. They're on their way to Turkey. They're probably there now. Either sometime with a time difference. They'll probably be there just maybe late tonight our time. So anyhow, but they're finally on their way to Turkey. So. 3 years they've been on deputation, and they are on their way. All right, if we don't, I'm not going to carry real long. My head is just killing me here. So let's turn to Psalms 116. That's where we're going to be at tonight in our series of Psalms, and we may go one more week with this. But we're going to definitely start. We've been praying about it this past week here. This week, we're definitely going to start a summer series on Wednesday nights here on prophecy, about the Lord's return, and the book of Revelation, things like that. So I need to get a little more studying in. And so we may go one more week here in the book of Psalms. But Psalms 116, there is no author here. So we don't know who wrote it, as far as the person who penned it down. We know the Lord's the one who gave it, but it could be David, very well could be. Most of the time, though, David is named. When he writes a psalm, most of the time his name is there. Some people believe it was one of the Jews, maybe one of the prophets, when they came out of the Babylonian captivity. Some believe it could even have been Daniel. We don't know. But what we do know is it is one of the most personal Psalms in the entire book of Psalms. If you just went through and counted all the pronouns, just all the times, just the word I, verse number 1, I love the Lord. And then verse number 1, my. And verse number 2, I, twice. And so it's a very, very personal psalm. And most likely, it was written because of some type of danger, some type of crisis that came into his life. It could have been a family situation. It could have been a health situation. It could have been a physical situation. We don't know. But we do know that whatever he was going through, he doesn't really center or focus on the problem. He focuses more on the Lord and what the Lord did for him. It didn't make his problem go away immediately. Usually our problems don't go away immediately. A lot of times our problems and the valleys that we go through, they're kind of extended. They take a while. Whatever this was, though, he decided that he would just turn his attention upon the God of the problem, not the problem itself. And so I was studying this psalm out today. And the Lord gave me this outline that breaks this down for us. And really, he's thanking God. He's thanking God. Thanking God, number one, is a command. And thanking God is just common sense. Since we can't do anything on our own, Jesus said, John 15, without me, you can do nothing. Since we can't do anything on our own, we ought to thank God. Because everything that we have in our life, the Bible says in James 1, that every good gift and every perfect gift comes from the Father above. the Father above. And so we ought to thank God. Now let's look here. I broke this down into 3 different sections here. Verses 1 through 4, we see the danger he was experiencing, or the disappointment he was experiencing, the discouragement he was experiencing. But during that, notice here how he addresses it, all right? So if you're writing it down, and you don't have to, but notice here his present assurance. Now he's talking about a problem here, but he's got assurance. Notice his present assurance. I love the Lord, because he hath heard my voice and my supplication. Now that word supplication, over Philippians it says that by everything, in prayer and, that's Philippians 4, by prayer and supplication. So what is supplication? It's linked with prayer, but what does that word mean? The word supplication in the New Testament is a word picture, meaning, as you know that all words had to come from somewhere, right? Every word, someone had to say it the first time. And a word picture is where, especially in the Bible, is where they saw something, and that picture, whatever they saw, that's what became that word. And so the word supplication is a word picture, and it's a picture of somebody holding on to another person's leg, begging them, and not letting them go. Okay? Get that? See, prayer, that's communicating, that's talking. Supplication is a deeper degree. The Bible says to pray always, pray without ceasing. Supplication is when we get to a place where there is a desperation. I say life or death, I don't mean that necessarily literally, it can be, but I mean in your mind, what you're going through feels like life or death. There's no in between, God. It's either you're going to do it, it's not going to get done, and that's supplication. It's a real deep groaning. It's a begging. So he says, I love the Lord because he hath heard my voice. That would be prayer, just like Philippians 4:6, and my supplication. Because he hath inclined his ear unto me, therefore will I call upon him as long as I live. So his present assurance is this. Not only has God answered my prayers in the past, but because I know that he has in the past, I'm just going to keep on praying. Right? We'll keep on praying. You see? And that's his present assurance. He's got assurance that God is listening to his prayer. Now I love it here, verse 1, where he says, I love the Lord. You know, there's no other psalm in the book of Psalms that starts out this way. This, I love the Lord. He wanted to make that clear. What it tells me is that whatever he was going through, other people probably knew about it. Other people probably knew about it. This could have been, I'm not saying he did, but Job could have been a perfect candidate to write this. Because he's saying, I love the Lord. It's almost as if he's saying, everybody around me knows what I'm going through. Everybody around me knows the situation I'm in. And they're probably wondering if my faith is strong, if my faith is genuine. I want them to know that even though I'm going through, we'll see in just a moment, even though I'm going through a terrible situation, I want everybody to know I love the Lord. This wishy-washy Christianity is not a good testimony to people around us. If people, and I've dealt with, and I was like that at one time, where, you know, I used God like a spare tire or emergency flare. Well, that wasn't a good thing. Why would anybody believe in a God that I say I believe in if I only use him when I needed him? The reality is I need him every day. And what the psalmist here wanted to make clear is, hey, I love the Lord. No matter what's going on, I love the Lord. So that's his present assurance. Then verse 3, he doesn't give us the detail, but we see his previous anguish. Something had happened in his life. He said, the sorrows of death compassed me, and the pains of hell got hold upon me. I found trouble and sorrow. We don't know what it was. Boy, that's a pretty strong language, isn't it? Death compassed me. So that simply means circle. It's like the old cowboy movies and the Indians. It's completely surrounded, right? And he says the pains of hell. I'm gonna tell you, that's pretty descriptive language here. Think about the worst thing you've ever gone through in your life. That's what he said. So that's his previous anguish. Then in verse 4, his prayerful appeal. Whatever the situation was, he could not fix it on his own. He couldn't fix it. This was something that was beyond his control. And here's what he did. He appealed to God. Then called I upon the name of the Lord. Oh Lord, this is what he said. I beseech thee. That means I beg you. Deliver my soul. I don't know what this man was going through. Whatever it was bigger than he was. It was beyond his own control. And so he appealed to God. Prayerful appeal. That's a great recipe for you and I of what we should do when we're facing a trial in our life. We need to be assured. You know, the Bible says, Hebrews, Lord said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. You need to be assured of that. If you're a born-again child of God, no matter what, he'll never leave us or forsake us. And he's always listening. Now, we have known unconfessed sin in our life. Say it's sin. We sin. We don't even mean it. Sometimes we sin. We don't even realize we have. There's a lot of people sinning. Not necessarily about what they're doing, but what they're not doing that they should be doing. The Bible says that's sin as well. But for a child of God, if there is known unconfessed sin, and we refuse to confess it and make it right, then our prayers can be hindered. But he's always listening. He's always listening. So we see the danger he experienced. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely a crisis in his life. But then verse number 5 through 9, that was 1 through 4, but verse 5 through 9, not only the danger he experienced, but the deliverance he enjoyed. Notice here, gracious is the Lord, and righteous. Yea, our God is merciful. The Lord preserveth the simple. I was brought low, and he helped me. Seems like whatever this was, it was a humbling experience that God was putting me through. You know, the greatest sin, apart from unbelief, but the greatest sin against God is pride. Pride. God can never use a prideful person. And if he's going to use a prideful person, he always has to break them. He always has to break them. You see, he always has to break them. As long as there's pride in our life, then we ignore God. And the tension's on ourselves. And he's saying here, whatever this was, God had to bring me low. So here's what we see, the deliverance he enjoyed. Now notice what God did for him. In verse 5, we see God's compassion. Gracious, merciful. That's the compassion of God. The Bible says that when Jesus was here on the earth, he was looking over Jerusalem, and he said that Jerusalem looked like a pasture full of sheep. They didn't even have a shepherd. It said he was moved with compassion. Today, we went to the viewing after we got done yesterday. We got up early yesterday, drive to Greenbrier, and preached and stayed for the preacher's fellowship, and left from there, went up there to Rogers and went to the viewing. And they came back this morning, but I listened to the funeral online, and I just bawled. I just thought, one, when I see anybody, especially when I see somebody I love, like Brother Swinter's one of my dearest friends, and I see him hurting, and I hurt. You know. By the way, the church ought to be that way. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 12 that in the church, when one weeps, we all should weep. When one rejoices, we all rejoice. And so it's compassion. The Bible says that some have compassion makes a difference. If we can't have compassion on people, we are of no use to God. Because if we have no compassion, we're not plugged into the heart of God. You see? So we see his compassion. Whatever the psalmist was going through, he was hurting. He said that the Lord was gracious to him. And that God was merciful. It kind of makes me tend to believe that whatever he was going through, it may have been self-inflicted. Maybe it was some sin in his life. Maybe he got himself in that situation. And he knew that he did not deserve anything from God. But yet God was good to him. And he's saying God was compassionate to me. I didn't deserve it. Really, because see, that's grace and mercy. We talked about that thing Sunday. Grace is getting something you don't deserve, and mercy is not getting what you do deserve. Right? See? So we see the Lord's compassion. Now look at verse number 6. In the last part, he helped me. Anybody ever helped you out before? Anybody ever helped? I had somebody ask me, it had been too long ago. And you probably did too, but I had somebody ask me, hey, do you know somebody can do such and such? And I said, yeah. A couple days later, he messaged me and said, hey, I need to find somebody who can do such and such. And I said, well, here, call this guy. And then I think it was maybe one other time. And he said, man, how in the world do you know so many people that can help out in different ways? I said, man, I've tried to be a help to everybody. You know what? If you try to help people, if you try to be a help to people, it's not usually hard to get help from people. Right? It's just not. Isn't it good whenever you need some help, people give you help? It's good, isn't it? And so he helped me. So verses 5 and 6, we see the Lord's compassion. Now, verse number 7, we see the Lord's care. Return unto thy rest, O my soul. You know what that means? His soul. That's talking about his emotions. It means this man had a lot of anxiety, nervousness, fear, right? He was disturbed about something. He had a lot of anxiety. And he says here to himself, he said, hey, don't worry about it no more. God's got this. You ever had that feeling? You know what? I'm not going to worry about this no more. God's got it. Isn't that good? Well, God, right? You're needing God to do something for you, right? Pray about it. Give it to God. And so, you know, I'm not worried about it no more. Don't worry about it. God knows what I need. I gave it to him. And so God's care. Isn't that great that God cared about it? Whatever God did for him, he was able to say, I don't have to worry no more. The Bible says, cast your care upon the Lord, for he cared for you. You see? He cares. Isn't that great? So we see his compassion. We see his care. Now I love this here. Verse number 8 and 9. I wrote this down this afternoon. For thou hast delivered my soul from death, mine eyes from tears, and my feet from falling. That gives you a good description of really what he was going through. My soul from death, my eyes from crying, and my feet from falling. Now look verse 9. I will walk before the Lord in the land of the living. So his compassion, the Lord's compassion, the Lord's care, now the Lord's compass. Now, nobody here probably has ever had to really use a compass. I had to in the military, but you do on a lot of your vehicles have a compass because they'll tell you north, east, right? Now, I still to this day, sometimes if I'm somewhere and I can't really figure out where I'm at, like in a town or somewhere I haven't been before, know it sounds silly, but I still do. I'll say, well, I at least know I'm going west if the sun's over here, right? Or I at least know that's east. I can at least figure something out, right? A compass gives direction. And as long as you know where your true north is, you can always figure out the rest of the direction. And I said the Lord's compass here because he said, I'm going to walk before the Lord. I can't walk before the Lord if I don't know where to go. Right? So after everything God's done for him, he said, now, whatever direction the Lord tells me to go, I'm going to go that way. I was listening to Brother Noel Swinner today talk about his dad, how that for 50 years he faked it. There were people, somebody flew in from Hawaii, there were people from all different states, and they came just to honor his dad, the life that he lived, serving God. You know how he can do this? Listen, when it's time for you to die, and it's time for me to die, nobody cares how much money you've got. Nobody cares what things you have. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I'm going to tell you what's going to matter is how many lives did you impact? When we leave this world, how many lives can say, my life is better, and my life has changed, and my life is different because I met them? Well, anybody can do that if they'll be faithful to God. And as long as we go in the direction of the Lord, you know what the Lord's going to do? Allow us to have contact with people that we can have an impact on. So we see the danger he experienced, verse 1 through 4, the deliverance he enjoyed, the Lord's compassion, the Lord's care, the Lord's compass. If you'll go in the direction of the Lord, you'll always be going in the right direction. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, trust in the Lord with all thy heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding, but in all thy ways acknowledge him, he shall direct thy paths. You see? All right, now the last section here in Psalms 116, we've seen the danger or discouragement or disappointment or doubt that he experienced, the deliverance he enjoyed. Now the duty he engaged. The word engage means put in motion. He's going to put in motion some duty, things that he feels is a must in his life. Verse 10 to 19. Now look at verse 10 and 11. His first duty. I believed, therefore have I spoken. I was greatly afflicted. I said in my haste, all men are liars. I like that because you know what it does? It tells us that this man was just like you and I. Now, he said in his haste, that lets us know he said it out of frustration or out of anger. Whatever happened here, this man, maybe he was betrayed, who knows? Who knows? But whatever the situation was, he got upset, frustrated, angry, or whatever, and said, you know what? You can't trust nobody in this world. Everybody's a liar. All right, now you know what he's doing here? His first duty, he's confessing. See, when he said, I said in my haste, he's making confession he was wrong. He was wrong. Our first duty, if we're going to walk with the Lord, is we got to confess. We've got to admit when we're wrong. I heard Brother Noel today say that his dad, growing up, was very quick to admit to his children and to his wife when he was wrong. I don't know if I come close to what Brother Dave Swinner, that was his name, but I can say that I really try to do that with my kids. I hope Krista would say the same. I try to do that with her. You know, some people have the idea of being a parent, and you know this idea. You do it because I said so. I don't have a problem with that if what you're telling me is right. There's been times that I've had to go back and say, son, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Confession is important if we're going to be right with God and we're going to be right with other people. We've got to be willing to admit when we're wrong. So the duty he engaged in verse number 10 and 11 is, he said, you know what? I said something stupid. Has anybody ever said something stupid? Anybody ever had diarrhea in the mouth? Had dookie mouth? Brian, poo-poo mouth? I say that because with our grandkids, if you say the word poo-poo, or poo, or dookie, they're going to laugh. I mean, I don't know what that is. Anyhow, he's saying, I said something poo-poo. I said something dumb. I said something stupid. I was frustrated. I was aggravated. And I said, everybody's a liar. You can't trust anybody. Something happened to reverse his mind on that. I don't know what it was. But he's confessing. Well, they say confession is good for the soul. That's true. Number one, confession is commanded of God. Confession is good for you. Have you ever done something and you knew you did it and maybe nobody knew or somebody didn't know and you came clean and you just felt like, oh God, I'm so glad Lord, I'm so glad that's over with. I'm so glad. Right? He's saying here, I made a mistake. I messed up. It may be, and I kind of tend to think that whoever he said this about, he was saying it about people that he loved, people that loved him, and in his frustration, he said something he shouldn't have said, and it hurt somebody. I've done that. I've had to tell Kristen many times, I'm sorry. I had to do it last week. So I'm sorry I hurt you, and I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to say that. Sometimes it's not our intention. It comes out wrong. Sometimes we do it. As soon as it leaves our lips, we know. I should have said that. He said, my first duty is I'm going to confess. Then verse 12, I'm going to call. Verse 12 here and verse 12 and 13. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits toward me? He said, I have a duty, but what can I do for God? What can I give back to God? I'll take the cup of salvation and I'll call upon the name of the Lord. You know, the greatest things we can do for God is just talk to him. Talk to him. He said, I'll confess and I'll call. Sometimes, have you ever done this? I have. We put off praying. You put it off. Then you come and you say, Lord, I'm sorry. I should already come to you about this. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to confess and I'm going to call. I'm going to call. So we see the duty he engaged. Remember that word engage means put in motion. He put some things in motion. Confession, calling, then notice his commitment will be done. Verse number 14. I will pay my vows unto the Lord. I can't tell you how many times people come to me, and it's okay, I've done it too. But people come to me, Rashawn, I want to tell you what the Lord did for me. What's that? Tell me. I'll tell you what now on. Well, I've done it too. I'm not judging nobody. Make a vow. Lord, I promise. Right? I promise. That has happened to me as a pastor thousands of times. Unfortunately, I don't know how many times I've done it, but I have. But he says here, you know what? I've made some promises to God in the past. You know what I'm going to do? I'm fixing to fulfill them. I'm going to come through with my promises, and not only am I going to do it to the Lord, but I'm going to do it in front of everybody. Meaning, you're going to know that I kept my word to God because everybody's going to see that I did. So, look at verse 16. Oh, verse 15. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of the saints. No, that's kind of a obscure verse in the middle of all this. Why would he say that? I think this is what he's saying. I made a lot of promises to God that I didn't keep. Now I'm going to keep them, not only in front of God, but in front of everybody else. You know why? When I leave this world, I want it to be a pleasant thing. I watched listened to that funeral today, and I wept and cried like a baby. And in my heart, I said, Lord, please let me leave this world like he did. Please. A man leaves the world like Brother Dave Swinner because he paid his vows and kept his promise to God. And his son and his daughters and his wife and everybody that knew him got up and they were able to back up what his life was lived. I think that's why he's saying it. He said, hey, if you want to leave this world and it be precious, keep your commitment. Oh Lord, truly I am thy servant. I am thy servant. God, I'm your slave. That's what that word servant means. Talking about his commitment. I'll offer to thee the sacrifice of thanksgiving. Hard to think that would be a sacrifice, wouldn't it? But do you know when thanksgiving and praise is a sacrifice? I tell you when it is when you do it and you don't feel like it, and you do it in the middle of the worst times of your life. I will offer to thee sacrifice thanksgiving. I'll call upon the name of the Lord. I'll pay my vows of the Lord. And this is twice he said it. I don't think he's saying it so much to tell God he's going to do it. He's reminding himself, oh, don't just say it. Mean it. Then in verse 18 or 19. In the courts of, he says, I'll pay my vows of the Lord now in the presence of all his people. In the courts of the Lord house, in the midst of thee, O Jerusalem, praise ye the Lord. This man has, listen, whatever he's gone through, most likely in some form or fashion, either he brought it on himself or he reacted the wrong way when it occurred. But he did have some part in some of this problem here. And this, here he is. You know what he's doing? He's getting right with God. He's getting right with other people. And he's saying, I'm not doing that again. Whatever it was he went through, he said, I'm out of it now. I'm not going back. I'm not returning to it. I'm not going to hurt whoever it was. Whatever he said there, all went right. I was wrong for that. I was wrong for that. I've gotten right with God, and now I'm going forward. And everybody's going to know that I am. They're going to see it in me. They're going to see it in me. I think he could, at the very end, he could have put the first 4 words in verse 1 at the end too. I love the Lord. Do you know what causes a man or a woman or a young person to do what he did? Love the Lord. When you love the Lord, you'll want to be right with him. You'll want to be right with other people when you love the Lord. Isn't that a blessing? What a great song here. It was written thousands of years ago, probably 2,700 years ago. But this was a real person that lived on this planet right here like you and I, who hurt, was disappointed, discouraged, going through a difficult time of his life. But he turned to the Lord. That's what you and I have to do. We go through some very disappointing times in our lives. I don't stay discouraged, but I do get discouraged. But I'll be honest with you, I about halfway stay disappointed. I just do. You know? If I'm not disappointed with somebody else, I'm disappointed with my own self. You know? I am. That's just what it is. But when you love the Lord, you keep going on. We can't quit. I mean, we could. Why quit on the one that we're supposed to love? So a great song here, great lessons. Great lessons about what the Lord does for us. I don't know what you may be going through or what anybody's going through for that matter. I don't really know that much, but I do know this. I do know that God cares. Can you say that He cares? Do you believe He cares about you? I believe He cares about me. And so I know that He cares. And I know that I can go to Him about anything. Well, anybody have any other prayer requests? Anything you got going on? Anything that you need us to pray about? So that's what we already have. All right. Well, let's go ahead and stand tonight. We'll have a word of prayer. And we've got Sunday service coming up here. We invite somebody out into the church. Not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, we're going to have our dinner on the grounds here. Nothing big fancy. We'll just have some time to haven't been able to do that in a while, so we're going to do that. All right. Okay, Brother Charles, if you would dismiss us.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for your message today. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the life that you have given us, Heavenly Father. Heavenly Father, we ask you to give us one who are sick. Heavenly Father, we pray for one on our prayer list. Heavenly Father, thank you for the diversity